Christian women especially need to hear this message today. I want to ask you something. With Abraham, with Moses, with David, with Solomon, if they had access to pornography at this time, would that be a problem for them? And the answer is definitively no. Well, why do you say that, you ask? Well, the reason is very simple, is that these men had multiple wives, and they didn't have the stigma that the false doctrines that the church gives us today, which is if you look at a woman lustfully, that's a sin. And that's actually what the Bible does not say. Christ didn't say that at all. What he said is if you have a want or a desire for a married woman, he's referencing the Ten Commandments, then you've already committed adultery in your heart. Okay? That word there, lust, that's an invented word in English. There's no such equivalent in the Greek that this was taken from. In the Greek, it's simply a neutral word that means to desire. That same word is used throughout the New Testament. Even Christ used it. He says, I desire, the word is epithemeo. I earnestly desire to eat the Passover dinner with you again. Okay, so it's a neutral word. So that's number one, how we've been led into this false narrative. Okay? And the second part of that is to look upon a woman. Now, the very first Bible, English Bible that came out, Tinsdale Bible, it correctly printed it as wife. If you look at another man's wife with the intent to take her, then that is the sin. That's what Christ was talking about. So let's talk about this today. Where does that lead us today? Well, today we've been led into all these different mantras. And of course, the Bible warns us of the doctrines of demons that would come along and traditions of men. Satan doesn't need to worry with people outside in the world. He just needs to turn the people inside the church with false doctrines. And he's been weaving all kinds of deceitful messages in there for thousands of years. So we have this mantra, one man, one woman. Okay? But that's nowhere in the Bible. And as we see, like I said at the beginning, Abraham, Moses, Solomon, David, they all had multiple wives. And it worked very well. That system worked very well. So what's changed today? Well, this is something that's been going on for thousands of years. The goddess complex. The goddess complex to control the man. Okay? So now, and let me premise all of this right away, because I'm speaking specifically to Christian women, and I'm hoping this can be freeing to both the man and the woman. Okay? Christ, Yeshua, Christ Jesus, he submitted his will to the Father. Okay? And what we are instructed to do in the Bible, in the New Testament, is for a man to be reverent to the will of God. Okay, just as Christ was reverent to the will of the Father, you and I have to be reverent to God. Okay? That man, that husband, the Godhead of his household, he first has to submit to the will of God. And what is the will of God? The will of God is for a man to protect his wife, to have children with her, and to love her, and treat her like the delicate teacup that she is. Okay? But he is to be the leader. So then, what is the role of the woman, the wife, to the husband? Okay, well, she submits to God's will, but she has to submit to her husband's will as well. And that is the hierarchy of structure. Okay? Not that the woman is not co-pilot in the marriage. And a lot of you Christians, you think the woman is the co-pilot. She's not. She is to submit. The Bible says she is to submit to her husband. Okay? To bring things to him. Okay? For him to consider. Okay? So here's the picture again. The woman has the leadership of the man. She was taken as the rib from the man. She wasn't created as co-equal at the same time as the man. The man was created in the image of God, then the rib was taken from the man, and from that, this rib was fashioned into the woman, okay? So the rib is not co-equal in the marriage in terms of leadership, okay? She's not the co-pilot. So that rib shouldn't be instructing the host body what to do and how to act and how to perform and how to behave. Now, don't get me wrong here, okay? When we become man and wife and we get married, this also has a purpose of making us the better versions of ourselves. Because we have a different perspective towards each other in the interpersonal relationship. Okay, so that it is to help us grow in that way. But the woman submits to the husband for his leadership because his leadership is coming from God to be a loving, godly man. All right? So I've been plagued with years with this thought of this friend. And I don't get to see him so often, and there's three of us, and whenever we've been able to get together on limited time because of distance, this friend is able to come for an hour and a half at most. And that's because his wife apparently allows him the time to come for an hour and a half to see his friends that he might not have seen for 6 months or a couple years. And that's not the way it should be. The woman should not be commanding the man's life and time. That's not being a submissive wife. And yet the godly husband's like, oh, I want to honor my wife. That's not how you honor your wife. You don't feed into her goddess complex. And yes, it is a goddess complex. Let me give you an example of this. So I was in a long-distance relationship for a while, and didn't work out. But I still pray for this person. She's married now, and I wish her the best. But in this long-distance relationship that I had at the time, there was always a control mechanism going on there. And to premise this was a woman I really found the joy of praying with. I mean, we would get on the phone or on video chat and pray for an hour or more sometimes. And she was my companion through a great season of loneliness. We would talk 7-10 hours a day, half in the morning and half at night. There was a great distance here. That part of me, inside of me, just came out so strongly. The words in praying for her and praying for her family and praying for our relationship came out so strongly that I was shocked by it. I was surprised by it as how much this is needed by a man. And for her to receive that, she was equally blessed by it, to receive those prayers, for us to bow down together in our different rooms miles apart and just come before God that way. But I did find that there was a control mechanism with her, that she wanted to control my life, where I was at, who I was with, these kind of things, and this kind of would appear now and then. Well, as the relationship eventually broke off, because she spoke a foreign language, she spoke English great, but she spoke a foreign language also, I noticed that I had a blind spot about some things that I didn't realize that were really more important than I'd given them credit for. One of them was that she still liked to post herself in different dresses and positions on her bed and so forth, attracting other men, trying to get their attention. But this wasn't the biggest thing. The biggest thing was this language barrier, that she had a cute name for her Instagram account or TikTok, I forget which. And the name translated into English was her name and goddess. Goddess, okay? So this is a big problem. Now, I'm just sitting last night watching this channel that I really, really like. It's the Beveres are their names. There's a daughter-in-law that does a show and does a great job. Very godly woman, godly people, and her father-in-law also has started doing a show with his wife. And I started watching this show last night, and the woman, the wife of him, and I think they're probably in their late 50s or 60s at this point, the wife is going off on the husband for earlier in his life getting involved with pornography and masturbation and all kinds of things related to that, and not, well, that seemed to be her biggest complaint, but not spending more time doing that than spending time with her in the bedroom. Well, she premised the whole thing by the fact that, she wasn't feeling like really doing sex anymore, all these excuses. So, women, you got to realize this about men. Men, you ever had an itch you cannot scratch? It's horrible. It's annoying, and you got to scratch it. And that is what it is like for men with sex. If we cannot have sex, it is an itch that we must scratch. Okay? So, this woman, even to this day, in this podcast last night with her husband, was still oblivious to the fact. I'm sorry, actually, her podcast was with a daughter-in-law. But she was sharing about the husband. And she was completely oblivious to the fact that she had cut off the husband and was not interested in sex. And here she was blaming him for getting into pornography. And here's the problem, is that women have made themselves into goddesses, even good Christian women. And these people I've been talking about here for the last few minutes in podcasting, these are good Christian people that they really are. I mean, they have good hearts and they have the hearts to lead people to Christ, but they are way wrong. They have been deceived by the deception that Satan has led into the church. Okay? Men would not have a problem with pornography if they had multiple wives to go to in their house, raising children together. This was not a problem ever. God never condemned polygyny. That is one man having multiple wives in his house. Okay? And here's another thing. We've been told that sexual immorality it comes from the word porneia, which we get from, we use for pornography. Completely unrelated. Doesn't mean a thing. The word porneia does not mean pornography. It actually comes talking Paul talking specifically to the Corinthians. Okay? They had a problem with temple sex prostitutes, people that were following the goddess again, Aphrodite, following the goddess or Artemis. And Aphrodite following the goddess temple, the gigantic temple in the middle of Corinth was based on goddesses. And this is something that's been going on in different incarnations for thousands of years. The problem there with that sexual immorality that's talked about there, that word porneia, where we get it from, and the word fornication we get from, is not just a blanket statement of sexual immorality. It specifically means joining your body to the temple, Aphrodite's temple, through a temple cult prostitute. That's what it means. That's why the term temple, referring to the body of the temple there, is called into play. Okay? It's not done anywhere else except for Christ talking about him rebuilding his temple 3 days after the Jerusalem temple would be down. That's the only place it's mentioned otherwise as temple. Specifically, do not join your body to a temple prostitute, thereby joining your body to a goddess. Okay? And that's exactly what we're doing today, even in Christian marriage. Okay? So, purpose of marriage, the very beginning. Man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Okay? There's babies in there. What is the purpose? What did God command us to do? Go forth and multiply. Be fruitful and multiply. You know, there's a pro and a con. When you see, for instance, Elon Musk out there with his little boy or his children, he's standing there in the White House with his child, and he just takes his children everywhere. Well, this man has 4 women, and technically they are his wives. He has 4 women that he's fathered, I think, 13 children with. And here's the sad part. Because women regard themselves as goddesses, those children are growing up. Some of those children are growing up in a home where their father is not there to guide them every night and guide them through the day when he's there and in his off time, obviously. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Elon could bring all his wives, the mothers of his children, into one of his castles, and they could raise family together? You see, men, talking to you now, we need to establish our households. The government's done a good job at just putting us into slavery, making us work extra jobs, making the wife work hard so that we're not there for our children to raise them properly. But that's kept us from raising armies of men and being there to raise our children in a godly way. You know, right now I am praying for a wife, and I'm for myself, I am not desirous so much. I ask myself this question. If I had the choice between some women that in personalities and looks were 6.5, 7 on a scale, and I had a couple of them, would that be better than a wife that was 100 or a 10 and a 10 and a 10 and a 10 in all aspects for me? And I wrestled with that question, and I finally came to the resolution that for me, if that woman, if I know and if I can get that commitment from that woman that she's going to love me with all of her heart and love God and treat me with the respect, and I in a place where I am giving her my godly blessings upon her in a very loving way, I'd prefer that one. But here's the problem. Here's the problem, women, is you get into marriage and you have children, and boom, all of a sudden, your husband is not number one priority anymore. Okay? He's the last priority behind the children. And let me tell you something. Unless your child is dying, okay, you should never, ever put your child or put your husband in that position. Okay? Never, ever, ever. Your husband is number one. Okay? And you need to give him the care and the feeding and the attention and the love that builds him up. Do you know that when it says that God created a helper for man, the woman, that this word here, helper, can't be translated in English. Like a lot of words we have in the Bible cannot be correctly translated in English. Okay, but this word helper there is an analogy of like a board that holds up a tree in the wind. Okay, and that tree being the man, the wind, the outside elements coming against him, because all the dark spiritual forces will come up against a man to destroy him. And you need to be there to prop him up, women. Okay? So if you've shifted your attentions immediately to the babies or the children, so they're number one priority, that's wrong. That's 100% wrong. They're not going to die. Let me give you an analogy, wives. You've gone into the bedroom and you crawl into bed and you say, "Not tonight, husband. I've got a headache," or "I'm so tired. Sorry." But the moment you hear a child cry, or need a glass of water or something, you're going to jump out of bed like you've got superpowers and go help that child, right? You're going to go nurture that child. Yet, you won't give the same kind of nurturing to your husband that is giving you everything. Okay? So, women, you entrap us. This is a scheme. You entrap us in marriage. It's bait and switch. If you come into a marriage and say, you're only going to have sex with me your entire life, and I can do whatever, woman. That's what you're saying in your mind. I can get fat. I can just start dressing down and no longer care. I don't have to service my husband in bed anymore. Don't have to show him my love anymore. That's entrapment. Okay, that's bait and switch. If he is going to commit himself to you 100%, then you are bound to give it to him. And how pitiful marriage vows are today that won't dare touch that subject because you have the spirit of the goddess. You know, go back to pornography here for a minute. You know the Bible has an erotic book of poetry? Yeah, it's called the Songs of Solomon. And the Songs of Solomon is kind of a play between a woman, an engaged woman, a betrothed woman to her new husband. And a lot of people say, oh, that's or some preachers say, that's only talking about Israel and God's love for Israel and all this stuff. And no. There's erotic poetry, and it's very specific in the kind of allegorical language that's used here. So God made men and women to enjoy each other's bodies. And women, if you're withholding that, I don't know what to tell you, women, to your husbands, wives, to your husbands. I do know what to tell you, actually, is that you're not following the ways of God. You're not loving your husband. Okay? You got to love your husband. No matter what it takes, you got to nurture him because he is nurturing you. Like I said before, when we come together in marriage, we give each other, we make better people out of each other together than we do apart. So I want you to go and look at all these things in the Bible and look at them again. This erotic book of poetry, Songs of Solomon, was written to I think it was the 140th or 141st or 44th wife in the Bible, of Solomon. Okay? Hannah had a competing, it's not quite a word, in her case it was a competing, call her sister wife. And let me bring this up right now. I'm not a Mormon or anything like that. I'm a born again Christian. I'm a non-denominational Christian, okay? God is number one, and if it's not in the Bible, then I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about your doctrines, okay? So let me premise that. But when I use sister wife, it's kind of a convenient term. Hannah, who is kind of being persecuted by her sister wife, and this is not always the case. I mean, there's been plenty of great relationships throughout history, and they have them today. I know men that have multiple wives, and they're all good with it. And they're smart, intelligent women. And they understand that the man is the leader and they are to be nurturing, and then he is going to provide a household for them where they will be saved through their childbirth, okay? Because that's where all the woman's focus goes. So go into the Bible and look for these things. With Hannah, she wept because she couldn't have children. She wept before the Lord. And her husband was good to her. And God didn't come along and say, "Oh, Hannah, you've got another wife in a relationship, and somehow that's no good." No, God didn't come along and do that. That's never a story in the Bible ever. God never commands it again. He never commands monogamy only. He just doesn't. Okay? He doesn't. But women, let me leave you with this. Deuteronomy 22, starting in verse 13, it says that a state of a woman for marriage should be that she is a virgin living in her father's house. And that even if she has sex before marriage, you know what the solution is? Well, it's not a sacrificial offering because you've somehow sinned. No, it just says get married. Okay? Get married. And what does get married mean? Well, there's no requirement in the Bible for a license, a permit from the government. There's no requirement for vows from a priest or a minister that you stand before. But it is an acknowledgement that you have a purpose, that you're going to take care of each other. So, wives, think carefully about your goddess complex. You may not even realize it's underneath there, but it's there because Satan has gotten into the church. He's weaved his doctrines of demons for thousands of years. And in recent times, we go around saying, one woman, one man, when that's not a mantra that's in the Bible at all. But my message here today is not to promote polygyny. I don't see anything wrong with it. In the Bible, there's nothing wrong with it. What I am saying here is, women, if you take a husband, you better make sure you nurture him in every way that that you can have intimate conversation with him. And an intimate conversation for him, most of the time, is going to be sex. Giving him your body, your warmth of your body, the waste of your body, the places he wants to put your hands on his body, the taste of your lips. He wants to look into your eyes and have that intimate connection that way. And if you withhold that from him, then yeah, he's going to, and you've entrapped him into monogamy only, then yeah, he's going to go off and look at other women. And he's going to imagine the pleasure and the warmth and the attention of another beautiful woman because you are not giving it to him. Give it to him. Don't stop.